Hi everyone, welcome to Miss Adams Teaches Romeo and Juliet. In this video, we're going to be taking a look at Act 4, Scene 2. A very small scene, but a scene that is still quite important because it's another one that increases the pace of the plot. So find out more. Let's get started. Very quick plot summary for you because, as I said before, very quick scene. So the scene begins with Capulet. Lady Capulet's there as well, but quiet, serving men and the nurse. And Capulet is well underway in getting the wedding preparation sorted out, regardless as to whether Juliet is going to agree or not. So he is getting ready for a party. And despite the fact that he had kind of suggested that it was going to be a small affair because of Tybalt's death, it's now looking to be quite the party scene. Our lovely Juliet arrives back from thrift with the Friar Lawrence and begs her father's forgiveness and says that of course she will do everything he says, in particular marrying Paris. And she tells her father that she saw Paris at Friar Lawrence's cell, which is of course true, and that she was she offered him as much love as she could without it seeming immodest, which in a sort of way is also true. Now, Daddy Capulet is thrilled about this turn of events because, let's be honest, it makes his life easier. And so he's like, hurrah, 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 I'm going to go and tell Paris immediately, but let's bring this up a notch. Let's add a bit more pace to this. And so he decides that, in fact, they're not going to get married on Thursday, as originally discussed. In fact, it's going to be Wednesday, which is tomorrow. So again, we have got time quickening up, pace, 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 hurtling towards the tragic end. Let's have a little look at this party scene seems to be going on. Bearing in mind the last time we saw Capulet, he was full of rage and horror. Now he seems to be in his element. We are in prose. You might immediately notice this here, that we're in prose. We've come out of verse, and that's because he's having a really kind of light-hearted and happy conversation with his servants. They're making jokes about what kind of cooks they're going to get. Look at this. He's asking for 20 cooks. So that shows the kind of size of the party that he is planning now for this wedding. And they have a little bit of a joke about the kinds of cooks that they're going to get. And he's like, well, I'll get them all to lick their fingers because any cook that's a good cook won't, will always lick their fingers. They won't be scared to try their own food. Ha ha ha, lols aplenty. So it's a really, really genial atmosphere, in stark contrast to the way that we last saw him, where he was like on the verge of striking his own daughter. And so off the cooks go to find, not cooks, the serving men go to find more cooks. And it's only then that Capulet's like, all right, where's my daughter? Charming discussion with the nurse when he tells him that, Juliet's down at Friar Lawrence's, praying. He refers to her as a peevish, self-willed harlotry. It is. Pronoun it is used to describe his daughter there, so he's completely dehumanizing her, but what potentially is more problematic is, again, he's calling her a harlot, which is a horrible word for someone who is promiscuous or almost edging into prostitution. And what else accompanies this insult about sexual promiscuity is the horror of a woman being self-willed, i.e. having a will of her own. So despite his geniality with his servants, he's obviously still so angry. And when Juliet arrives, look at the way that he speaks to her. How now, my headstrong, i.e. again, reminding us of the self-willed. Where have you been gadding? Gadding means wandering. And in this situation, it's got, again, that little hint of sexual promiscuity as an undertone. Now, of course, in this moment, Juliet throws herself on her knees, literally begging forgiveness. She says, well, where I've been is where I've learnt me to repent the sin of disobedient opposition to you and your behests. So she's like, I've learnt my lesson. I will never disobey you again. Here she is drawing upon the sort of stereotype of what a good daughter of Shakespearean time was, someone who prioritized duty to her father. And so she apologizes for her disobedience, and then says, you know, explains that the Friar Lawrence has helped and, you know, told her to come and beg his forgiveness, which is what she does here. Look, pardon, I forgive you. Look at the anadiplosis, all repetition, if you fancy something easier. The repetition of pardon, pardon meaning forgiveness here, and then beseech means beg. I beg you. And she promises, henceforward I am ever ruled by you. Now that is not true. She knows in her heart of hearts that she's lying to her father. But I don't think it's mad to imagine that she feels a sort of sense of like a need for forgiveness, for her father for having angered him, because she is a good daughter. Capulet doesn't respond to her immediately. The first thing he says is, send for the county, go tell him of this. He's talking to a servant. And then this, he's almost talking to himself. I'll have this knot knit up tomorrow morning. So this knot knit up, this is a metaphor about, you know, the bringing together, the tying together of these two people. So suddenly, you know, we've got this little adverb of time, suggesting urgency. But what I'm more interested in is the fact that he doesn't sort of immediately forgive his daughter. You know, it's not until she then further explains that at Friar Lawrence's cell she spoke to Paris, and you know, but it's so troubling, this moment, in that her forgiveness is almost dismissed because he has what he wants. And full of irony, he says, now afore God, this reverend holy friar, our whole city is much bound to him. The reverend holy friar, who of course married his daughter to Romeo. So the dramatic irony in this moment is huge. But there's another level of irony here as well, which is, of course, after they have died, in the end, the city is much bound to the holy friar, because it is only through their deaths that the two families are able to make peace, and it is only the friar that is able to explain what has really happened. The other slightly difficult part of the scene is the relationship between Capulet and Lady Capulet. Now, in public, in front of Juliet and the nurse, Lady Capulet tries to stop Capulet from pushing the wedding forward, saying, no, not till Thursday. There is time enough. And if you notice here, Capulet just ignores her, just like he did to Juliet. He just ignores her and speaks to the nurse and said, go nurse, go with her. And then again, just to everyone, will to church tomorrow. So no open discussion. And then after Juliet and the nurse have left, so now in private, probably hoping to, you know, now that they're in, you know, there's not an audience, that she might be able to get through to her husband. We'll be short in our provision. It is now near night. And again, very logical, very rational. You know, it's night, like, how are we going to possibly do this within 12 hours, essentially, because it's nighttime? And Capulet shushes her, yeah, and just tells her, nope, go to Juliet, help to deck her up. So the total dismissing of his wife, and that's quite typical. We've already seen a sort of disrespect between the two of them. We've seen the kind of coldness as well between Lady Capulet and Juliet. This, as a family unit, despite all of the honour that they're meant to live up to, is a very, very cold, very, very dismissive one. And really, the only thing that Paris seems to be worrying about or caring about is the idea of throwing this big party, and I assume getting the kudos from it. If you look at the very last line, he says, my heart is wondrous light since the same, this last little section, my heart is wondrous light since this same wayward girl is so reclaimed. So he's like, oh, I feel so much better. Now, wayward, again, it's kind of like wandering. It's about her will, but again, with that little nasty hint in it. And it's about the fact that he has sort of got her back where she belongs. So there's no further threat to his reputation. When it comes down to it, all of this impulsive behaviour is about reputation. But all of this is by the by, really, because the most important thing to consider in this scene is this timeline and now this deadline. Because, of course, previously we thought that they had, you know, a good amount of time for the Friar Lawrence to be able to communicate to Romeo what's going on. Juliet's going to have to take the potion this very evening. So again, everything has sped up, meaning that there are more possible complications, which of course will occur and bring around the tragic fate. Last few moments. As always, love and conflict. Patriarchal power seems to be in almost every scene now, but here is a big one. You see this absolute rage, this misogynistic insulting of his own daughter and her will that suddenly goes away the moment she does what he says. And we also see that kind of patriarchal power in the way he dismisses his wife without listening. Note how different Juliet and her mother are. Even though Juliet is saying, okay, I'm obedient, she's not. This is all a ruse. She's just doing it so she can get upstairs, take her potion and find her way with Romeo. She is taking charge of her life. Whereas her mother, her only option is just to do as she's told. Marriage is, of course, a key theme coming up again, because now we're back into the planning of the marriage. I think it's interesting that there was not even a moment where he considered that the marriage might not take place. And the biggie, haste. Time, pace, and impulsivity. That's it from me, just a quick one. Thank you so much for watching. Any questions, any comments, you know where to pop them in the comments and I will come back to you. If you haven't subscribed, hit that button and then you'll get notifications of all of the other videos I'm doing to help you with literature and language. All right, that's it from me. Happy revising.